Taman stood in the center of the Grand Assembly Hall and tried not to let his nervousness show. The room was massive, with walls that seemed to be made of living light that shifted between soft blues and purples. He had been chosen from thousands of candidates to represent humanity in this historic moment. First contact with an alien civilization. His hands felt sweaty inside his formal diplomatic suit. Around him, the rest of Earth's delegation stood in a careful formation. They had practiced this moment for months. Every gesture, every word, every movement had been rehearsed until it became second nature. But now that the moment was actually here, Taman felt his heart pounding in his chest like a drum. The doors at the far end of the hall opened without a sound. Light poured through, and figures began to enter. The Volari. Taman had seen pictures and videos, but nothing prepared him for seeing them in person. They moved like they were floating, their feet barely touching the ground. Their skin looked like it was made of crystal or glass, and it changed colors as they walked. Soft pinks, gentle greens, calm blues. Princess Arya entered last, and the entire human delegation held their breath. She was taller than the others, and her skin seemed to glow from within. A crown of what looked like frozen starlight rested on her head. Her gown flowed around her like water, and her eyes were large and deep purple. She moved with a grace that made Taman feel clumsy just watching her. The Volari. Delegation stopped about 10 feet away from the humans. Taman could see the princess studying them with obvious curiosity. Her skin shifted to a pale yellow color, which his briefing had told him meant interest or attention. He took a deep breath and stepped forward as planned. His translator device hummed softly near his ear. He spoke the greeting he had memorized in the Volari language. The words felt strange in his mouth, all soft sounds and long vowels. Princess Arya's skin flashed a pleased orange color, and she responded. The translator whispered in his ear that she was honored to meet humanity's representatives. Taman smiled, feeling more confident. This was going well. He decided to add a human touch to the formal greeting. He extended his right hand toward the princess, offering the traditional human handshake. It was a gesture of peace, of friendship, of equals meeting equals. Princess Arya looked at his outstretched hand with what seemed like curiosity. Her skin shifted to that yellow color again. She glanced at her advisors, who made small gestures that might have been encouragement. Slowly, gracefully, she reached out her own hand toward his. Their hands touched. Everything happened in seconds. But to Taman, it felt like slow motion. The moment his palm made contact with hers, Princess Arya's entire body went rigid. Her eyes went wide, wider than he thought possible. Her skin flashed through a dozen colors in rapid succession, white, purple, red, white again. Her hand in his felt cool, almost cold, and incredibly delicate. He could feel her fingers trembling. Then she started shaking. Not just her hand, but her entire body. It was like she was having some kind of seizure. A sound came from her throat, something between a gasp and a cry. Her skin was now flashing so fast between colors that it was almost painful to look at. Taman released her hand immediately and stepped back, his own hands up in a gesture of surrender. His mind raced. What had he done? What was happening? The Volari guards moved faster than he would have thought possible. They surrounded the princess in an instant, their bodies forming a protective wall. One of them, taller than the others, with skin that had gone blood red, pointed something at Taman that looked like a weapon. Princess Arya was still shaking, her hands clutched to her chest. She was trying to speak, but the words came out in gasps. The translator caught fragments. Something about strength, heat, impossible. Her legs seemed to give out. Two of her guards caught her before she hit the ground. The human delegation erupted into chaos. Someone grabbed Taman's arm and pulled him back. Captain Nari stepped in front of him, her hand on her sidearm. The head of the human delegation, Ambassador Park, was shouting something about medical assistance. The Volari were shouting back in their musical language, but the tone was anything but musical now. Through the confusion, Taman could see Princess Arya. She had stopped shaking quite as violently, but she was pale, her skin almost white. Her eyes found his across the distance, and he saw something in them he couldn't quite read. Fear? Pain? Confusion? Before he could figure it out, the Valari guards were moving, carrying her toward the door they had entered from. The head Valari diplomat, an older being with skin that had settled into an angry red color, pointed at the humans and spoke rapidly. The translator struggled to keep up, but the meaning was clear. The humans were dangerous. The humans had attacked their princess. The humans were to be confined to their quarters immediately. Ambassador Park tried to protest, tried to explain, but it was no use. Valari security forces entered the hall, weapons drawn. They weren't pointing them at the humans, not exactly, but the message was clear. The humans were to leave. Now, Taman walked in a daze as they were escorted from the Grand Assembly Hall. His mind kept replaying those few seconds. The touch of her hand, so cool and smooth. The way her whole body had reacted. The fear in her eyes. He had just wanted to shake her hand, to show friendship. Instead, he had caused an intergalactic incident. The human delegation was taken to their assigned quarters in a different section of the station. The doors sealed behind them with a sound like a lock clicking into place. Temin sat down heavily in a chair and put his head in his hands. Around him, the others were talking rapidly, trying to figure out what had happened. What went wrong? Jiwoo, his aide and oldest friend, sat down next to him and put a hand on his shoulder. She didn't say anything, which Taman was grateful for. What was there to say? He had ruined everything. Humanity's first contact with an alien species, and he had somehow hurt their princess with a simple handshake. Through the window, Taman could see the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth home. He wondered if he would ever see it again, or if he would be remembered as the man who started a war with a handshake. The weight of it settled on his shoulders like a physical thing. All he had wanted was to be friendly, to show respect. How had it gone so terribly wrong? 3 hours had passed since the incident, and Taman hadn't moved from the window. He stared out at the stars, replaying the moment over and over in his mind. The way Princess Arya's hand had felt in his. The way she had started shaking. The fear in her eyes. Behind him, the delegation was in chaos. Ambassador Park was on a communication channel, trying to reach someone, anyone, from the Valari government. Captain Nari was checking their quarters for surveillance devices. Others were gathered around Dr. Heian, the xenobiologist, who was running through data on her tablet with intense focus. Jiwoo brought Taman a cup of coffee and sat beside him. She had been his friend since they were children, growing up in the same neighborhood in Seoul. She had followed him through university, through diplomatic training, and now to the stars. She knew him well enough not to offer empty comfort. Dr. Heian thinks she has something, Jiwoo said quietly. You should come listen. Taman turned from the window and walked over to where the xenobiologist was, surrounded by others. Dr. Heian looked up at him with tired eyes. She had been awake for over 30 hours straight, preparing for the meeting. Now she was running on pure determination. I need to know exactly what you felt when you touched her, Dr. Heian said without preamble. Everything. Temperature, texture, anything unusual, Taman thought back. She was cold. Really cold. Like touching ice, but not painful. Her skin was smooth, smoother than anything I've ever felt, and delicate. I was afraid I might hurt her just by holding her hand normally. Dr. Han nodded, her fingers flying across her tablet. Average human body temperature is about 37 degrees Celsius. According to the data we received about Valari biology, their average is around 24 degrees. When you touched her, you were 13 degrees hotter than anything she's used to. That's not enough to hurt her though, right? Temin asked, his voice tight with worry. Maybe not physically, Dr. Heian said. But think about it from her perspective. Imagine someone touching you with a hand that's 50 degrees Celsius. Not hot enough to burn, but hot enough to shock you. Ambassador Park leaned in. Is that what happened? Temperature shock. That's only part of it, Dr. Heian continued. She pulled up a diagram of human skin on her tablet. Human skin contains billions of bacteria. Literally billions. We evolved on Earth, a planet full of microorganisms. Our immune systems are constantly at war with them. But for a species from a nearly sterile world, like the Valaria appear to be from, that much bacterial life in one place might be overwhelming. Temin felt sick. I infected her. No, Dr. Hyun said quickly. Their briefing materials said they can handle our level of microorganisms. They wouldn't have agreed to physical proximity if they couldn't. But sensing them, feeling them all at once through touch, that might have been shocking. There's more, Dr. Haynes said, scrolling through her data. The Velari evolved on a world with 1/3 Earth's gravity. Their muscles, their bones, everything is built for that environment. When I calculated the pressure of a standard human handshake, converted to their frame of reference, it would be like us being grabbed by something with the strength of a small industrial press. The room fell silent. Taemin sat down heavily. I didn't mean to hurt her. I don't think you did hurt her, Doctor, Hyun said thoughtfully. If you had, their doctors would have said so by now. This seems more like shock, sensory overload. Think about it. Heat, pressure, and trillions of living organisms all at once, through what might be the most sensitive organ on her body. A chime sounded. Ambassador Park rushed to the communication panel. A Velari face appeared on the screen, one they hadn't seen before. The translator identified them as Physician Lises, Chief Medical Officer for the Velari delegation. The physician spoke in their musical language. Princess Arya is stable. She was not injured by the contact.
Ow.
The relief in the room was immediate. Taemin felt like he could breathe again for the first time in hours. However, Physician Lises continued. We must understand what happened. The princess described the experience as overwhelming. She felt heat, pressure, and something she described as a storm of tiny lives. We need to ensure this does not happen again. Dr. Hayan stepped forward. I request permission to meet with you, Physician Lises. I believe I understand what occurred, and I think we can prevent it in the future. The Velari physician's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue. You are the human biology expert? Xenobiologist, Dr. Hyun confirmed. I study alien life forms, including my own species, from an outside perspective. Interesting, Physician Lises said. Very well, I will arrange a meeting. But understand, the Council is calling for your delegation to be sent home. If we cannot prove humans are safe, diplomatic relations will end before they begin. The screen went dark. The weight of those words settled over everyone. Captain Nari spoke first. How long do we have? Unknown, Ambassador Park said. But not long. Dr. Hoon, you need to make them understand. Everything depends on it. The next few hours passed in a blur. Dr. Hayan was escorted to a medical facility where she met with Physician Lises. Through video communication, she showed them comparison data between humans and Velari. She explained human evolution, how Earth's higher gravity, harsh climate, and constant exposure to diseases had created a species built for survival. Tem watched the whole presentation from their quarters. He saw Physician Lises' skin change colors as they processed each piece of information. Surprise, fascination, and what might have been concern. Your species lives in a constant state of warfare, Physician Lises said at one point. Your bodies fight invisible enemies every moment of every day. We call it an immune system, Dr. Han explained. It's why we can survive in so many different environments, why we heal from injuries, why we're so resilient, and this is normal for you? We don't think about it, Dr. Han said. It's just life. Physician Lises was quiet for a long moment. The princess did not understand what she would experience. None of us did. We knew humans came from a higher gravity world, but we did not comprehend what that meant. Your normal is our extreme. Can you help us explain this to your council? Dr. Hayan asked. We don't want to end contact. We just need to find a way to interact safely. I will do what I can, Physician Lises said. But there is fear now. Fear is difficult to overcome with logic alone. After the communication ended, Dr. Huyan returned to their quarters looking exhausted but determined. She gathered everyone together. We need to prove we can control our strength. We need to show we understand the difference between us and them. How? Taemin asked. It was the first time he had spoken in hours. Dr. Hyun looked at him directly. You're going to have to try again, Taemin. If they agree to it, you're going to have to show you can touch them without causing that reaction. Taemin's stomach dropped. The thought of causing Princess Arya that kind of distress again made him feel ill. But Dr. Hayan was right. If they couldn't prove humans could interact safely with the Valari, everything would end here. "I'll do it," he said quietly. "Whatever it takes." Q squeezed his shoulder. Around the room, others nodded in support. They were in this together. Humanity's first contact with alien life couldn't end in failure. It couldn't end in fear. Somehow, they would find a way to bridge the gap between two species that had evolved in completely different worlds. Outside the window, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the drama playing out among the tiny beings in their station. But for those beings, everything hung in the balance. The message came the next morning. Princess Arya wanted to speak with Taman, not through diplomatic channels, not with the full delegations present, just the two of them in a controlled environment. Ambassador Park had been reluctant, but the Valari Council had agreed to it. On the condition that they would be separated by a transparent barrier, Taman prepared carefully. He showered twice, scrubbing his skin until it was red. Jiwoo helped him dress in the cleanest clothes they had. Dr. Hayan gave him a briefing on what to say, and more importantly, what not to say. But as he walked down the corridor toward the meeting room, flanked by both human and Valari guards, all the preparation felt inadequate. The room they entered was divided down the middle. On one side, the environment was calibrated for humans with Earth's normal gravity, temperature, and air composition. On the other side, everything was adjusted for the Valari. Between them was a wall of some transparent material that seemed to shimmer slightly. Princess Arya was already there, standing on her side of the divide. She wore simpler clothes than before, just a flowing gown of pale blue. Her skin was a calm green color. When she saw him, it shifted to that yellow shade he had learned meant interest. Taman bowed deeply, gesture of respect he hoped would translate. "Your Highness, I cannot express how sorry I am for what happened. I had no intention of causing you distress." The translator device rendered his words into the musical Valari language. Princess Arya listened, then stepped closer to the barrier. Up close, he could see details he had missed before. Her skin really did look crystalline, with tiny facets that caught the light. Her eyes had no visible pupils, just swirls of deep purple. "I know you meant no harm," she said, her voice coming through the translator as soft and careful. "I have been studying your species since the incident. I understand now that what happened was not an attack, but rather a fundamental difference in our biologies." Taman relaxed slightly. "Dr. Han explained it to me. The temperature difference, the pressure, the bacteria. I should have known better. We should have researched more carefully." "How could you have known?" Arya asked. "We provided you with data on our biology, but data is not the same as experience. We told you our average temperature, but we did not explain what it would mean for us to encounter something so much warmer." She raised her hand and placed it against the barrier. Taman could see it trembling slightly. "In my culture, physical touch is extremely rare. We evolved on a peaceful world with few predators and abundant resources. We had no need for the kind of physical resilience your species developed. When we greet each other, we do this." She held her hand near the barrier, not touching it. After a moment, Taman felt a strange sensation, like a gentle static electricity. "We share electromagnetic fields," she explained. "It is how we connect, how we communicate on a level deeper than words. It is intimate but gentle." Taman watched, fascinated. "We're very different then. Humans are tactile. We shake hands, we hug, we pat each other on the back. Touch is how we show friendship, support, affection." "I have seen this in your cultural data," Arya said. "It is beautiful in a way, but also frightening to us. Your species lives in a world of constant physical contact, constant sensation. Our world is quiet by comparison." She lowered her hand and moved to a seat near the barrier. Taman mirrored her, sitting on his side. They were close now, close enough that he could see the subtle shifts of color in her skin as her emotions changed. "Tell me about Earth," Arya said suddenly. "I want to understand where you come from." Taman thought about how to explain his homeworld to someone who had never experienced anything like it. Earth is loud and chaotic and full of life. Every surface is covered in microorganisms. The air is thick with moisture and particles. The gravity pulls at you constantly. Weather changes without warning, bringing storms and wind and rain. It sounds harsh, Arya said, her skin shifting to a concerned blue. It is harsh, Taman admitted, but it's also beautiful. Because life on Earth had to fight so hard to exist, it became incredibly diverse and resilient. We have millions of species, all competing and cooperating and evolving together. Humans are just one part of that great web. And this made you strong, Arya said thoughtfully. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. You learned to endure. I suppose we did, Taman said. We don't think about it much. It's just normal for us. We get sick and recover. We get injured and heal. We face challenges and overcome them. That's just what humans do. Arya was quiet for a long moment. Her skin cycled through several colors, settling on a deep purple. When you touched me, Taman, it was the most intense physical sensation I had ever experienced. The heat of your hand felt like standing near a fire. The pressure of your grip felt like being squeezed by machinery. And underneath all of that, I could sense the billions of tiny lives on your skin, each one radiating its own minute energy. Taman felt his chest tighten with guilt again. I'm so sorry. Don't be, Arya said, surprising him. It was overwhelming. Yes. It was frightening. But it was also amazing. For a moment, I felt what it must be like to be human. To experience the world at that intensity, with that much sensation, that much life. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. She leaned forward slightly. My council wants to send you away. They fear what they don't understand. But I convinced them to give us this chance to talk, to learn about each other. Because I believe there is value in connecting with a species so different from our own. Thank you, Taman said sincerely. We want the same thing. Humanity has dreamed of meeting other intelligent life for centuries. We don't want this to end before it really begins. Minho, the cultural anthropologist from the human delegation, had been watching from the back of the room. He stepped forward now, asking permission to speak. When Arya agreed, he began explaining human customs and traditions. Showing images and videos of Earth, Arya watched with fascination as humans ran, jumped, played sports, and engaged in activities that would be dangerous or impossible for Valari. She saw humans hiking through mountains, swimming in oceans, dancing in crowded celebrations. You do all of this for enjoyment? She asked, her skin flashing yellow with amazement. We do, Minho confirmed. Humans seek out challenges, physical and mental. We climb mountains because they're there. We explore dangerous places because we're curious. We push our bodies to their limits because it makes us feel alive. Remarkable, Arya murmured. We would find such activities exhausting or terrifying. Our idea of recreation is meditation, artistic creation, intellectual discussion. Different doesn't mean wrong, Taman said. Both approaches have value. Arya smiled, or at least made an expression that seemed like a smile. I am beginning to understand that. Tell me, Taman, if your council approves, would you be willing to try again? To attempt a greeting, but this time with precautions in place. Taman's heart raced. If it would help build trust between our peoples, yes, but only if you're comfortable with it. I will need time to prepare, Arya said, and we will need to develop protocols to make the interaction safe for both of us. But I believe it is worth attempting. Elder Sophine, one of the Vellery council members, had been listening from the other room. He entered now, his skin a skeptical red color. Princess, are you certain this is wise? These humans are powerful, perhaps dangerously so. Power is only dangerous if it is used carelessly, Arya replied calmly. Taman and his people are not careless. They are different, yes. Strong, yes. But they are also capable of gentleness and restraint. I have seen it in how carefully Taman speaks, how precisely he moves even now. He is controlling himself, holding back his natural strength, because he understands the difference between us. Elder Sophine studied Taman for a long moment. Very well, Princess. But I will be watching closely. As the meeting ended, and Taman prepared to return to his quarters. Princess Arya placed her hand against the barrier one more time. Tiemann mirrored the gesture on his side. They couldn't touch, but he could feel that strange electromagnetic sensation again, stronger now. "Thank you for being patient with me," Arya said softly. "For not giving up. Thank you for giving us a second chance," Tiemann replied, walking back through the corridors. Tiemann felt something he hadn't felt since the incident. Hope. The arena was larger than any room Tiemann had seen on the station. It had been designed to host events for multiple species, with sections that could be adjusted for different environmental needs. Today, it would serve as the stage for humanity's demonstration, Sunwoo. The human engineer worked frantically at a table near the entrance. Spread before him were several pairs of gloves made from materials he'd requisitioned from the station's fabrication facility. He had been working for 3 days straight, sleeping only in short bursts, determined to create something that would allow safe contact between humans and Valari. "How's it going?" Tiemann asked, approaching the table. Sunwoo looked up with red-rimmed eyes. "I think I've got it. These gloves have temperature regulation built into the palms. They'll bring your skin temperature down to match Valari levels. The material is also designed to be extremely soft and to disperse pressure evenly, so your grip strength will be reduced to something they can handle comfortably." He held up a pair of thin, almost invisible gloves. "The exterior layer is specially treated to minimize bacterial transfer, while still allowing the electromagnetic field interaction they use for greetings. It took me 15 failed prototypes, but I think these will work." Tiemann took the gloves carefully. They felt almost weightless. "Thank you, Sunwoo. I know you haven't slept. I'll sleep when this is over," Sunwoo said with a tired smile. "Just don't mess up my hard work out there." The Valari Council began arriving, taking seats in a special viewing area on one side of the arena. Princess Arya sat in the center, flanked by Elder Safin and other advisors. Her skin was a neutral green, but Tiemann could see flashes of yellow curiosity breaking through. Ambassador Park gathered the human delegation together. "This is it. We need to show them that we understand the risks and that we can control ourselves." "Everyone knows their role?" Nods all around. Doyen, the pilot and athlete, was stretching in a corner. He would be demonstrating human physical capabilities first. Dr. Hayan stood ready with her presentation materials. Captain Nari and Jiwoo were prepared to assist with whatever was needed. The demonstration began. Doyen stepped into the center of the arena. A course had been set up with various obstacles: walls to climb, weights to lift, distances to run. What would be challenging for most species would be routine for a human. But that was exactly the point. Doyen started running. His feet pounded against the floor in a rhythm that seemed impossibly fast to the Valari observers. He vaulted over a barrier that was chest-high without breaking stride, approached a wall, and simply ran up it, using his momentum and strength to reach the top. Grabbed a horizontal bar and swung his body around it. Several times before launching himself to another platform, Tiemann watched the Valari reactions. Their skin colors shifted wildly: shock, fear, amazement. Elder Safin's skin had gone almost white. Even Princess Arya looked stunned, her skin cycling rapidly between purple and orange. Next came the strength demonstration. Doyen approached a weight that, according to the display, was about 200 kilograms. For the Valar, such a weight would require machinery to move. Doyen bent down, gripped the handles, and lifted it over his head with a grunt of effort. He held it there for several seconds before setting it down carefully. Ambassador Kalen, the Valari diplomatic liaison who had been cautiously supportive of continued contact, stood up from his seat. His skin was a shocked yellow. "This is normal for humans? This is what you consider athletic ability?" Dr. Haynes stepped forward to answer. "This is above average for our species, but not exceptional. Humans evolved as endurance hunters on a high-gravity world. We can run for hours without stopping. We can climb, jump, swim, and manipulate heavy objects. Our muscles are dense, our bones are thick, and our cardiovascular system is extremely efficient." She brought up images on a large display screen. Diagrams of human anatomy compared to Valari anatomy. A human skeleton can withstand impacts that would shatter Valari bones. Our muscles can exert force many times our body weight, But this strength comes with control. Jiwoo stepped into the arena now, carrying a tray with various objects on it. There were pieces of Valari crystalline art, delicate and beautiful. There were tiny mechanical components. There were sheets of paper-thin material. She set the tray down and picked up one of the crystal sculptures. This piece would break under minimal pressure, Jiwoo explained. But watch. She held the sculpture in her hands, turning it gently, examining its details. Her movements were slow, controlled, precise. She set it down without the slightest crack or scratch. She repeated this with each object, demonstrating fine motor control that seemed at odds with the raw strength Doyeon had just displayed. She assembled the tiny mechanical components into a working device. She folded the thin material into an intricate origami design. Humans don't just have strength, Dr. Han continued. We have dexterity. We have control. We can choose to be gentle or powerful depending on what the situation requires. Princess Arya spoke up. But in conflict, you would choose power. Your species must be formidable warriors. The arena fell silent. It was the question they had all been dreading. Captain Nari stepped forward. She had been chosen for this part of the demonstration because of her military background, but also because of her honest, straightforward manner. Yes, Nari said simply. Humans have a long history of conflict. We fought each other for resources, territory, ideology. We developed weapons and tactics. We were very good at war. She paused, letting that sink in. The Valari skin colors showed various shades of alarm. But we also developed diplomacy, cooperation, and empathy. We learned that working together made us stronger than fighting ever could. It took us a long time to learn this lesson. Thousands of years. Many mistakes. Much suffering. Nari pulled up historical images on the display. Ancient battles. World wars. Nuclear weapons. The Valari recoiled visibly. But then the images changed. The United Nations, international space cooperation, the global effort to reverse climate change, humans working together to solve problems. We're not perfect, Nari admitted. We still have conflicts. We still disagree, but we've learned to resolve most of our differences without violence. We created laws, treaties, diplomatic systems. We chose to be better than our worst impulses. And if threatened, Elder Sofin asked, his skin still a wary red, if your people were in danger? We would defend ourselves, Nari said honestly. But we would also try every possible peaceful solution first. Our strength makes us confident enough to choose peace. We don't need to prove ourselves through violence. Taemin watched Princess Arya during this exchange. Her skin had settled into a thoughtful purple. She was absorbing everything, processing it through whatever framework the Valari used to understand the universe. The final part of the demonstration involved Taemin. He put on Sunwoo's specially designed gloves and approached a table that held several Valari objects. Delicate crystals, intricate devices, precious artworks. Under the watchful eyes of both delegations, he picked up each one, examined it, and set it down safely. The gloves worked perfectly. He could feel the reduced temperature in his palms, the gentle diffusion of his grip strength. The objects felt more stable somehow, easier to handle gently. He completed the task without breaking or damaging anything. These gloves, Princess Arya asked, they make humans safe to touch? They help, Sunwoo explained. They reduce the temperature difference, spread out the pressure, and minimize bacterial transfer. But they're not perfect. The real safety comes from awareness and training. Taemin has been practicing for days, learning to control his grip, to move more slowly and carefully. I would like to see more, Elder Sofin said. His skin had shifted from red to a cautious orange. Can your diplomat demonstrate this control in a real interaction? Ambassador Kalen stepped down from the viewing area. He was taking a risk, Taemin realized. If something went wrong, he would be the one hurt. But Kalen approached steadily, his skin a determined green. I will attempt the human greeting, Kalen said. With the gloves and with care, Taemin removed the gloves briefly to show his bare hands to Kalen. This is what human skin feels like normally. Warm, textured, full of life. He put the gloves back on. And this is how we can adapt to meet you safely. Slowly, carefully, Taman extended his gloved hand. Kalen studied it for a moment, then reached out his own hand. Their hands touched. Kellen's eyes widened and his skin flashed yellow, but he didn't pull away or start trembling like Princess Arya had. Strange, Kalen said quietly. Cool, smooth, gentle. Not at all like I expected based on what happened before. They held the handshake for several seconds before releasing. Kalen examined his hand as if checking for damage, but his skin was already returning to a pleased blue color. It can be done. Contact is possible. The Valari Council members began talking among themselves in their musical language. The translators struggled to keep up with the rapid conversation. Taman could see that opinions were divided. Some skin colors showed fear and reluctance. Others showed the yellow of curiosity and possibility. Finally, Princess Arya stood. I wish to try again. With Taman, as we discussed, the arena went completely silent. This was the moment everything had been building toward. The Garden Dome had been Princess Arya's suggestion. It was a beautiful space on the station, filled with plants from a dozen different worlds. The dome itself was transparent, offering a view of the stars beyond. It was neutral ground, peaceful and quiet. Away from the formality of council chambers and the clinical feel of the arena, Taman arrived first. Wearing the specially designed gloves Sunwoo had created, he had practiced with them for hours, learning how they changed his sense of touch, how they made him move differently. Jiwoo had made him grip eggs, handle sheets of thin glass, manipulate delicate instruments, all while wearing the gloves. He had broken a few things at first, but eventually his muscle memory adapted. Princess Arya entered the garden with only 2 guards, who stayed at a respectful distance. She wore a simple gown that shifted colors from green to blue as she walked. In her hands, she carried a small device that physician Lisa's had created, something to help regulate her nervous system's response to intense stimuli. They met in the center of the garden, near a fountain that made soft musical sounds. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply looked at each other, 2 beings from worlds that couldn't be more different, trying to bridge a gap that seemed impossibly wide. Thank you for agreeing to this, Taman said finally. I know it's asking a lot. You are not the only one taking a risk, Arya replied gently. Her skin flickered yellow with what he had learned was nervous anticipation. If this fails, my council will use it as evidence that contact with humans is too dangerous. But if we succeed, it could be the foundation for a lasting alliance between our peoples. She took a breath, a very human gesture that she had probably learned from watching them. I have been preparing. Physician Lisa's has been exposing me to gradually increasing stimuli. Heat, pressure, even samples of human bacteria in controlled doses. My nervous system is learning to handle stronger sensations without going into shock. And I've been learning control, Taman said, holding up his gloved hands. These help, but the real work has been mental. Learning to think about every movement, every touch, as if I'm handling something infinitely precious. Arya's skin shifted to a warm orange. In their color language, he had learned, it meant appreciation or affection. Shall we begin? They stood facing each other, about an arm's length apart. Taman could see his own reflection in her crystalline skin. He looked nervous, which was fitting because he was terrified of making another mistake. Slowly, carefully, he raised his right hand, extended it toward her, palm down, fingers loose and relaxed. This time, he didn't rush. He let her set the pace. Arya raised her own hand. It trembled slightly, but not from fear. From the effort of overcoming instinct, of choosing trust over caution. She moved her hand closer to his, inch by careful inch. Their hands touched. Arya gasped. A soft intake of breath, but she didn't pull away. Her eyes widened, and her skin flashed through several colors in quick succession. Purple, yellow, orange, white. But she held steady. Taman felt the coolness of her hand through the glove, felt the delicate bones beneath the crystalline skin. How do you feel? He asked softly. Overwhelmed, Arya admitted, her voice breathless. but not in pain. I can feel your heartbeat through your hand. Did you know that? It's so strong, so steady, like a drum. I can feel something too, Taman said, concentrating. It's like electricity, but gentle. Is that your electromagnetic field? Yes, Arya said. We usually feel each other through these fields, but adding physical touch makes it more intense. I can sense your presence more clearly now. Your life force, your energy. It's beautiful. They stood like that for what felt like a long time, but was probably only a minute. Just holding hands, learning to feel each other's presence. When they finally separated, Arya's skin had settled into a bright gold color. Joy, Temin had learned, the color of pure happiness. I did it, she said, wonder in her voice. We did it. Elder Safine, who had been watching from the garden entrance with the other council members, stepped forward. His skin was no longer the skeptical red it had been for days. It had shifted to a cautious but hopeful green. Princess Arya, you are certain you are unharmed. I am certain, Arya said firmly. The experience was intense, but manageable. With proper preparation and the right precautions, physical contact between our species is possible. The council members conferred in rapid musical exchanges. Ambassador Park and the other humans waited tensely. This was it, the moment that would determine humanity's place among the stars. Finally, Elder Sophine spoke formally. The Valari High Council recognizes humanity as a sentient species capable of peaceful coexistence. We accept Earth's petition to join the galactic community, with protocols in place to ensure safe interaction between our peoples. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. Jiwoo actually let out a small cheer before catching herself. Ambassador Park bowed deeply to the Valari Council. Dr. Hyan smiled so widely that her face looked like it might split. Even Captain Nari cracked a rare smile. But the real celebration came later. After the formal agreements were signed and the documents were transmitted to both Earth and the Valari homeworld, the Garden Dome was transformed into a reception area where both delegations could mingle carefully. But without the previous fear and tension, Taman found himself talking with Ambassador Kalen about the possibilities for cooperation. The Valari had technology humans could barely imagine. Energy systems and propulsion methods that could revolutionize space travel. Humans had something the Valari needed too, physical resilience and the ability to work in harsh environments. There are worlds we cannot colonize because they are too dangerous, Kalen explained. High gravity, extreme weather, aggressive microbial life. But for humans, these might be manageable. And there are scientific concepts we struggle with, Ambassador Park added. Your people have been studying the universe for thousands of years longer than we have. We could learn so much. The conversation continued late into the station's night cycle. Plans were made for cultural exchange programs, for joint research missions. For human engineers to help build structures on Valari worlds, while Valari scientists shared their knowledge with human universities. 1 year later, Teeman stood in exactly the place he had dreamed of since he was a child. He was on Earth, but he wasn't alone. Princess Arya stood beside him, wearing a specialized environmental suit that protected her from Earth's harsh conditions while allowing her to experience it. Safely, they were at the edge of a cliff overlooking the Pacific. The ocean. Waves crashed against rocks below, sending spray into the air. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that made Arya's skin shimmer with reflected colors. It's terrifying, Arya said, her voice coming through the suit's communication system. The gravity pressing down on me. The moisture in the air, the sound of the waves. Everything is so intense. Do you want to go back inside? Taman asked, concerned. No, Arya said firmly. I want to experience it. I want to understand what made your people who they are. She reached up and, with deliberate care, removed one glove from her environmental suit. The Earth's air touched her crystalline skin directly for the first time. She gasped at the sensation, but didn't replace the glove. Instead, she reached out and took Taman's hand. No barriers between them this time, no special gloves, no controlled environments. Just her hand in his, skin to skin. Her entire body shuddered, and for a moment Timon thought he had made a terrible mistake. But then her skin began to glow, brighter and brighter, shifting through every color in her spectrum before settling on the brightest gold he had ever seen. "When we first met," Arya said, her voice filled with emotion, "I trembled because I had never felt anything so overwhelming. Your heat, your strength, your life force, it was more sensation than I had experienced in my entire existence combined." She squeezed his hand gently, learning the gesture from him. "Now I understand. That's what it means to truly live. Not just to exist in comfort and safety, but to feel everything. The good and the bad, the gentle and the intense, the beautiful and the terrifying." Timon looked out at the ocean, at the sunset, at the world that had shaped humanity into what it was. "Your world taught you peace and wisdom. Mine taught us endurance and adaptation. Maybe together, our people can learn from each other." "We already are," Arya said. She looked up at him with those deep purple eyes. "You've taught me that being different doesn't mean being incompatible. That fear can be overcome with understanding. That the things that make us unique can be sources of strength rather than division." The sun dipped below the horizon, and the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Up there, somewhere among those points of light, was the Valari homeworld. And somewhere up there, humans and Valari were already working together, building the foundation for a friendship that spanned the stars. Timon had worried that his handshake had ruined everything. That one moment of cultural misunderstanding had ended humanity's chance at joining the galactic community. But instead, it had become the beginning of something greater. A bridge between two species that had every reason to fear each other, but chose understanding instead. "Welcome to the human experience." "Your Highness," Timon said with a smile. Arya's skin pulsed with golden light. "Thank you for sharing it with me." They stood together as night fell over Earth, two beings from different worlds, holding hands and watching the stars. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities that neither species could have imagined alone. But together, united by understanding and respect, there was nothing they couldn't accomplish. The trembling that had started from fear transformed into something else entirely. Connection, understanding, friendship, and perhaps, given time, something even deeper. The stars witnessed it all, silent and eternal, as they had witnessed every great moment in the history of life in the galaxy. And if stars could smile, they might have smiled at this. At two brave souls choosing to reach across the darkness and touch, despite the risk, despite the fear, despite everything that made them different, because in the end, that's what truly mattered. Not the differences that divided them, but the courage to bridge those differences. Not the trembling that came from fear, but the trembling that came from joy, from discovery. From the overwhelming beauty of connection, humanity had reached for the stars and found friends waiting. And in finding them, humans had learned something essential about themselves. That their strength was not just in their resilience or their endurance, but in their capacity to be gentle, to adapt, to understand, to reach out a hand in friendship, even when that simple gesture could change everything.